Hello and welcome aboard the Carnival Firenze, everybody. This is your cruise director Joey, and at this time I would like to invite all guests to join us on deck 4 and 5 at the Piazza Theatre. Please prepare for our naming ceremony. So we'd like to make your way to the Piazza Theatre, decks 4 and 5 for our naming ceremony. Thank you and ciao.
Buongiorno a tutti, miei amici snaticos. Mi chiamo Matteo e oggi stiamo andando all'Estra da Carnival Firenze al suo viaggio inaugurale da Long Beach. So I'm sorry about the canny audio. I chose a little niche on board the Queen Mary here so that at least you can hear me because there are sounds everywhere and I don't get to have my dream lav mic that will make everything much more palatable. It is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, and today is the day that the Costa Firenze has been transferred over to Carnival as the Carnival Firenze. I am quite excited to have been invited as a VIP special guest to the inaugural sailing party, and more specifically, the naming ceremony. But this is cruise ships are people too. And in this video, I am going to be talking about what dignifies the Carnival Firenze and the Vista Class Carnival ships in particular, of which there are 5. Now, Vista Class cruise ships started sailing in either 2015 or 2016 with the Carnival Vista, and there are 5 of them currently with the Venice Class cruise ships added total. And looking at our empty decks right now, I am just excited about how much it's going to be buzzing from 4 to 10:30 p.m. today as we go through the naming ceremony itself, a special dinner, and all the time in the world. They're giving us a lot of time to explore the ship. Now, this is really her maiden voyage, as her first maiden voyage was January of 2021. It all started with the Costa Firenze back in spring of 2023, where she is now doing New York sailings to Cuba and the Caribbean and the like. The Costa Firenze is the South Coast, West Coast, California equivalent to that, with 3 to 7 day Mexican Riviera cruises. And actually, that is a big question that I had. Why is Carnival bringing Costa ships over to the namesake line? And at first I thought maybe it was financial. You know, the pandemic really did change everything. On the Carnival websites and on various articles that I read, it said that the reason why they transferred the ships over is to bring some Italian flair to us in America.
An interesting move for sure, a way to increase the Carnival Cruise Line fleet while managing costs for the Costa fleet. They're all in the same family.
And I actually realized that I don't think I've ever seen a Costa ship in my entire life. And to see the Costa funnel is kind of a new thing for me. They've only been relegated to the Mediterranean. Actually, I wasn't sure if they were going to change the funnel or not. To see a Costa funnel is actually really cool. I don't care if they did it to save money or not. I'm down for it. Ooh, it's bigger than my apartment. Take it home with me, you know, make a good souvenir. Also, Jonathan Bennett, who's probably on board the ship right now, those millennials should know him from the original 2004 Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan. He played the love interest. And since then, he's done a lot of horror and Hallmarky and Christmas-style movies, which is a very interesting contrast to each other, isn't it? He is the godfather of the ship, which is pretty much just a fun and quirky PR move on the part of cruise lines to bring more attention to the ship and more attention to the celebrity, I suppose, who is acting as the godmother or the godfather. For those of you watching for the Carnival Firenze by itself, who want to get to know the ship and the layout and the differences between the Carnival Panorama, for example, I'm going to be touching on some of those subjects as well. Now, one of the things I do look forward to is the Costa element of the ship. The ship in 2021 was built specifically for Costa. I don't think they had any intentions initially to transfer her over to Costa. dress code kind of hilariously instructed Italian chic, and I knew right away just what to wear, including this incredibly soft, classy luxe H&M blue-white striped shirt, brand new high-waisted Haggard trousers, both of which I thrifted at the Goodwill boutique in Huntington Beach, this very earthy brown corduroy jacket I inherited from my godfather, this vintage surfer's shark necklace I inherited from my paternal father, who was a dope surfer back in the 1960s, and these Italian-inspired loafers that wound up being a little big on me. Perfect for when you need to walk around 14 decks worth of 135,500 gross ton ship, might I add. I might have looked a little bit like an F-boy wannabe with my low-cut shirt, but how else was I going to show off this totally tubular necklace as if I were somehow in the Italian Côte d'Azur?
So andiamo, mis amici naticos!
Okay. It's becoming real. It's official. I have allergies, I'm congested, and it's really windy outside. But we're almost on board, baby! Oh yeah, this is the big moment. Hello! Now, after the excitement of stepping on board, a lot of my priorities lost me in the heat of the overwhelming atmosphere. But one priority at the forefront of my mind was inspecting the pretty bedazzling appearance of the interior spaces to see just what it was really made of. Now, my initial reaction of the Piazza Duomo, or, you know, the Grand Atrium, mimicked that of my first expressions of the Piazza aboard the Discovery Princess a year earlier. It wasn't nearly as big as I inferred from the clever camera work in the promo footage. This is not to say that I wasn't impressed or bedazzled, as I've said, by what I was seeing, and the crowd around the all-inclusive bar probably attributed to the lack of full scope appreciation. I find it interesting that atrium spaces have gone from as tall as you can possibly reach to a little bit more wide and oval, though a good 5 decks shorter. Is this due to a change in modern sensibilities, or could it be to fit more staterooms and amenities in the decks above? I just entered the ship, so I couldn't possibly be drunk yet. The woman who looked baffled at the strange footage I appeared to be capturing of this marble pillar was probably thinking. Sure enough, it was not marble, but some kind of plastic veneer. And the closer you got to the decor, the more obvious the very mimicked material became. And this isn't me complaining. For me to wonder if the material featured was real or not speaks volumes about the love and care put into the budget-friendly nature of these ships. One thing I've always appreciated about Carnival is that they are not trying to hide anything about their cost-saving measures to make it possible for people without deep pockets to enjoy some version of an enjoyable seafaring adventure. For more on that, check out my Carnival Fantasy Class Saga deep dive. It is a video I'm very proud of. Now let me expand a bit on the exterior of the Vista class design. You know what? There was a lot to appreciate about it, I'll be honest. I love the front curvy visage, far greater than what Princess and NCL Norwegian Cruise Lines have done with theirs. I'm guessing the lack of open deck limits the amount of maintenance and construction costs, perhaps? Though arguably monotonous, the curves are more classic than the hexagonal shapes of the Destiny class, for example, and I love the stacking effect from prow to forward-facing balcony stateroom. And then you have the uniquely modern tilt of the hull below the lifeboats that also occupies the in-hull balconies. See some of the in-hull cabins here, which I wouldn't be surprised if they were inspired by the Queen Mary 2. Staterooms have definitely become bigger and with a more spacious feel on modern cruise ships, and that is something I can appreciate. Not too crazy about these exclusive Havana cabin balconies though, as anyone can pass by you and try their best to no avail to kind of peek over out of sheer human curiosity at your casual lounging experience. It's funny how the exclusive nature of class divisions aboard ocean liners are returning with a slight twist, with upcharged restaurants, cafes, retreat areas, and now full-on sections based on the type of cabin you've booked and paid for. I'm not knocking it, I'm just dumbfounded the way history repeats itself. It was close to 4 p.m., the party was getting started, and I was all about it. The crew on Carnival are some of the most friendly and approachable that I've ever experienced on any cruise line I've sailed or had the privilege of experiencing the VIP treatment on. I was so eager to experience the upper decks while it was still day that I gradually made my way from the absolutely delightful, made in Italy Piazza Duomo, where I got to admire some of the quintessential Italian scenes Costa is known for on every single staircase landing. The carpet was thick and plush, and the overall atmosphere was peaceful and pleasing. Recently, Carnival has gone from kitsch, loud and plastic, to a more classy and upscale and often tropical look, and Costa has followed closely behind in their own way, including some trendy technological experimentations, like these smart digital elevator buttons. I didn't really see a big difference from actual physical buttons, but that's what trial and error is all about. The deck layouts themselves have more going for them than on the newest princess ships, I'll say. I love the effect of deck stacking, and the beautiful layering effect that gives a great sense of size and scope is breathtaking on this ship, and I really appreciate the amount of traditional waistline railing that allows you to fully enjoy and immerse yourself in the surrounding views. You know, the reason you decided to go on a cruise out at sea? I still don't know if I take the ship to certain scenic destinations like the Panama Canal or Alaska, but I absolutely love the spacious wide open deck spaces with accompanying rail that you just don't see as often anymore. I know this is largely for safety concerns so that people don't willingly or unwillingly fall off nearly as easily, so I do respect the purpose behind this modern implementation. Princess ships, the Discovery Princess in particular, can have a tendency to confuse you as to where you're going exactly. The upper decks can be something of a maze. You have to go up or down one deck to go up or down another deck. Here's an example. She is no ocean liner, and we had the Queen Mary right across the way to remind us of this very glaring fact. She is also not trying to be an ocean liner, which is why comments like this...
The Mary was a lady, a proper ship with class and style. The other, a monstrosity, a town, picked up en masse and put onto a floating platform.
rub me the wrong way sometimes. She is a Carnival-adopted Costa ship and does, as it were, include some of the bland and clunky features cruise ships are often criticized for, and that the Firenze is no exception to, in a lot of ways. I'm not too crazy about the clunky stern or visible window panes on the 3-deck High Lido. Just look at how crudely unfinished all this looks, or the awkward way certain decks cantilever over the side, depending on the angle, that is. There are some very flattering angles in some ways, and some atrociously unflattering angles in other ways. It's all just a bit clunky and industrial here and there. But the decks themselves are, as noted, wonderfully spacious without the trendy features like water slides and obstacle courses obscuring the spacious experience, something this ship does a good job of fulfilling. Despite the outward crimes against shipbuilding, on the inside the 3-deck High Lido is large and impressive, while at the same time feeling cozy and straight out of the Mediterranean. I was extremely hungry, and it was here that I finally got some morsel of very high-end canapes, and my first of a very few all-inclusive alcoholic beverages. I regret it very much, as I am a terrible lightweight, and I only consumed half of it. Go figure that. The placement of the sports court tucked away behind the funnel is breathtakingly grand and wonderful. I do wish the jogging track had its own semi-exclusive deck like on the Grand Class Princess ships and older retro cruise ships from the Y2K period though. There are also some peaceful and thoughtfully designed, free-to-use retreat areas. This is a budget-minded cruise ship, but the quality of these spacious upper decks could have fooled me. And I was very, and I mean very awed and inspired by the mighty Costa funnel that reminded me so very much of a classic ocean liner. I could easily see it on a ship from the 1930s, for example. The pictures don't do this funnel justice, and perhaps that's due to the overpowering and somewhat awkward nature of the ship's shape and appearance that overshadow it. The funnels are not quite the focal point they used to be when they once represented the size, strength, and grandeur of the nation that built them. Costa has actually been around for a long time, its inception beginning as far back as 1858 when it was known as the Giacomo Costa Firenze, trading the likes of olive oil and fabrics. But it was renamed Linea C, taking transatlantic passenger service on per size in 1948 with the Anna C. And what a absolutely beautiful ship. It wasn't until 1964 that it took on the cruising brand we know it for today. In 2000, it was bought out by Carnival Corp, and here we are, years later in the Long Beach cruise terminal of all delightfully unexpected places. One deck area I was looking forward to testing out the most was the promenade on Deck 5. It is not wraparound and requires some dizzying back and forthing around too many to count windbreakers. It is not wraparound. Oh wait, I said that already, but it's important to note because we need to bring this back, people. Ships are getting bigger. How are spaces somehow getting more cramped? You know? It is almost wraparound though, and with all this beautiful retreat space and outdoor seating for exclusive restaurants that thankfully don't get in the way of your promenading. And what really won it for me was not the 4 delightful protrusions on either side that give you great views here, there, and down below. Hopefully you're not afraid of heights while you're sailing 20 knots or so at sea, but the forwardmost section that I actually had free access to. I saw my dreams of sailing aboard a Sovereign class Royal Caribbean ship.
Gee, are you kidding me? Look at this promenade deck. It wraps all the way around the front of the ship. This is awesome.
One of those dreams that cannot be come to life before my slightly glazed eyes from the mere complimentary 1.5 glasses of alcoholic beverage I indulged in. By the way, Carnival does Moscatos right, take it from me, people. This forward-facing view from this vantage point was a beautiful gift that you just don't receive on cruise ships anymore. Yeah, I kinda wanted to cry. This was as ocean liner relatable as it got for me, and I was all on board. With that said, I think this configuration style where the lifeboats are underneath rather than above is absolutely genius. Totally forward thinking and out of the box. There will be planes next. Now, I'm someone who loves looking at the lifeboats on ships. Though the Discovery Princess had them placed in such a way that made the promenade very tight, obstructing the view, which is actually reminiscent of a lot of the early 4-stackers, Titanic included. Still provides a cool opportunity to admire the lifeboat machinery, but of course not everyone is into that. So it was, again, genius how they configured the Vista-class ships to virtually hide the lifeboats completely. Though, while you're gaining space and perspective above the majority of the superstructure, you're also losing it on the decks below, where you should get a sweeping, fully enclosed view outside from those wonderfully large windows like on most other ships. I guess you could call this a robbing Peter to pay Paul situation, where you sacrifice a smaller privilege for the much greater one. This is how we're still able to have nice things. Finally, on her interior spaces, I was blown away by how chic everything appeared. It gave me serious Bellagio in Las Vegas vibes. Again, this is a modern, though budget-friendly cruise ship, and I wanted to master Italiano so bad after experiencing some of these uniquely European spaces. On the Carnival Panorama, the Atrium has a technology-driven forward cone sort of digital display as its focal point. I personally much prefer the maximalist vibe in the Italian-inspired Piazza Duomo. I'm sure many of the features aboard, including the funnel, were unchanged for mostly financial purposes, but I'm far from feeling shortchanged by it. The Golden Lion statue in place of the creative digital focal point on the panorama is a charming and refreshing exchange. Now, the main event of this VIP evening extravaganza was the naming ceremony, or should I say renaming ceremony, featuring some big names in the cruise and Hollywood film industry. And did I mention Broadway as well? I was not expecting to have a full-on vaudeville experience from the likes of Leslie Kritzer, who worked alongside Jonathan Bennett in the recent resurgence of Spamalot. For the full uncut experience, I have linked the video in the description below. Another example of ships downsizing space included the 2-deck, rather than 3-deck high, Teatro Rosso, which was much larger than I expected and reminded me of an Italian equivalent of the Queen Victoria's more Baroque-inspired Royal Court Theatre, which for a significantly smaller ship spans a whopping 3 decks high. I had the opportunity to snag a selfie with Jonathan Bennett himself, but I was a little nervous at the idea and he left pretty quickly. But I did manage to get a few with the oh-so-charming cruise director Joey Boys, as well as the long-running brand ambassador for Carnival, John Held. After a little bit of journalistic-minded lingering, I joined everyone in the 2-deck-high Michelangelo restaurant, named and inspired by the Italian-themed Spirit Class ship, the Carnival Pride, sporting the same Michelangelo David statue found in David's Steakhouse, directly underneath the dramatically red-tinted solariumed funnel. And I was assigned kind of a perfect seat where I had a sweeping view outside the floor-to-ceiling stern windows that, while sailing, looks out into the ship's wake. It wasn't until I was about ready to leave that I got to see the section they show in the brochures, and it was stunning. Although it was much more breathtaking than my sitting location, I much preferred the view I was privileged to have, even though it wasn't the view of the Queen Mary like these guests who were waiting patiently as I shot this 10-second video had. This is when I fully grasped just how all-inclusive everything was for this event, and I boldly ordered that Moscato I boasted about earlier. It was a fairly limited menu, but just like cruise guests, we could order any and all our appetites demanded. I started off with 2 appetizers, including the fried crab arancini because it was seafood for crying out loud, and the roasted mushroom soup, which was very smooth and soothing and included a pour-over performance by my very friendly waiter. For the portata principale, I went light with just the jumbo shrimp. I have a tendency to eat slow, just ask my family, but I do later regret not also ordering the filet mignon, which was quite a popular choice for many of my fellow diners, and with raving reviews might I add. For dessert, I was very eager to try the cannoli siciliani di ricotta, because it was a cannoli for crying out loud.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
And the torta della nonna, because I'd never tried anything like it before. My tablemate and I both agreed that we were unfortunately disappointed with the dessert options, which just didn't taste very fresh, quite frankly, though I did love the raspberry dipping custard included in the torta. Finally, I was truly free to roam all parts of the ship. I was so looking forward to seeing the Bar della Moda at the very stern section of Deck 5, where the exclusive Havana cabins are located.
Here you entered on a red carpet with well-dressed mannequins on both sides. And is it one thing that Italy is famous for, it's fashion.
But perhaps for some contractual reasons, the probably very expensive clothing on display was replaced with more and very nice NYC Incontra Roma artsy seating arrangements, though it very well could have been a practical design choice. In person, this gave me Pan Am Capital vibes, even more than in the photos and footage, and in a way I was kind of all about it. It also reminded me of some of the places Andy found herself in The Devil Wears Prada, a place to see and be seen, but being super demure about it, and maybe a little drunk while you're at it. Anyway, the entire flow of decks 4 and 5 were very sleek and manageable. I love leading lines, something vintage and antique spaces had in abundance that we need to start bringing back. Deck 5 is where the fun shops, Cloud9 Spa of all things, and a lot of the specialty upcharged restaurants are located, and I could not get enough of the striped flooring that I could easily see Patrizia Reggiani walking down with pride. And in the Limelight Lounge, originally known as the Lounge Vireggio, was Italian kitsch meets class I would have loved to participate in if I didn't have such a limited time with all the other spaces I hadn't yet been able to see. Speaking of classic design, the Tuscan Lounge reminded me of much of the space you'd see aboard the ill-fated Regina d'Italia, the Andrea Doria, with its cave ceilings and strip lighting, though I was very confused by this very dated popcorn ceiling effect. My overall initial reaction to the Firenze and the Vista/Venice class Carnival ships are beyond my expectation. There is a kitsch meets class about the Firenze that I can get behind.
You will never be Mufasa!
But I'm okay with that. What sets this ship apart from other cruise ships, and that goes just about as much for her Vista Class contemporaries, is that she is authenticamente Italiana, originally intended for the Italian market, and you really don't get that in these parts. This was my first time ever seeing a Costa ship, let alone boarding one. I realized when I saw the ship for the first time while preparing my intro footage aboard the Queen Mary, having been the only Vista/Venice class ship I've ever been on, I don't have a whole lot to compare to. But I've been to the Bellagio, aboard several different Cunard ships, and have a deep love for ocean liners of the past. And the fact that a brand new foreign ship like this is available for affordable short-term cruises is incredibly encouraging to my seafaring heart. I, for one, can't wait to cruise Fun Ship Italian style. Special thanks to Chris Bright for use of his very atmospheric music. Find him on Life Is My Soundtrack, and as always, keep heading toward the horizon. Oh, and subscribe. Thank you.
It all started with the Costa Firenze. No, that's what this ship is. It all started with